Dark clouds on the horizon should serve as a warning for both the sailors under your command and you as the potential player. Her Majesty's ship from developer Every Single Soldier tasks you the player with rising through the ranks of ultimately being named the Admiral of your nation's fleet. The trials and tribulations along the way will be plenty in what can best be described as a board game under the guise of a resource management sim. Using that as our intro into the game, why don't we take a deeper look at the nuts and bolts and see if it can handle the stress of the high seas. Initial playthroughs of Her Majesty's ship will give you the basic tutorial that can be replayed and gives you a decent working knowledge of how the title works. Unfortunately, a game with so many moving parts needs a deeper tutorial to fully grasp the concepts and the importance of the specific tasks required of you. These tasks are disseminated by what the game calls orders. They appear as flags descending down the guideline with your goal to address them before they reach the bottom. Problem number 1. The quick pop-up menu gives you a brief description of what each flag means, but unless you take notes, a picture, or have a working knowledge of nautical affairs, you'll be relying on the cutout view of your ship and highlight the area for you. This is fine in theory, except there are times when you have an area that's highlighted that's not available. The medical bay is a key example of this, as you may receive an order to deal with it, but have no crew members that are in need of attention. Completing orders help raise your crew's morale, but also adds points towards your progression. Failing these orders has the expected opposite effect, which causes problems when you're unable to attend to them at no fault of your own. This brings us to the controls. Her Majesty's ship screams PC. There is no way around the obvious. Navigating around the diorama-esque ship is fine and tied to the right thumbstick. From this view, you can highlight certain areas and execute orders with the A button. Holding the right trigger brings up a submenu which allows the transition from ship command to the flags, where you can then address the orders independently. Unfortunately, and we're going to be saying that a lot, this is pretty useless outside of the Admiralty orders. When these are executed, the ship will set its own course and everything is put into autopilot for you. The remaining flags do bring up a description of what is requested of you. However, they're often hidden behind the flags, making some unreadable. While sailing, you may need to swab the deck or the dining hall, which is handled by highlighting the area and pressing A. In fact, all of your on-ship duties are handled this way. Raising and lowering the sails can be done from the ship's bell or individually. The ship's bell will be key and is an example of another area that the tutorial lets you down. When combat arises, and it will often, you're given around 20 seconds to ready your crew. If you try to draw up your sails individually and move members around to the cannons, you may not have enough time to properly attack. Using the bell, you can call all hands to deck or all hands to battle stations. Combat is boiled down to managing your gunpowder and crew members. The bottom of the screen will give you a percentage chance you have of winning each engagement, which fluctuates based on the number of cannons in use. There is a magic number that seems to work the majority of the time, but we're not going to spoil that. As mentioned before, your crew's morale plays a big role in the game. In order to avoid a mutiny, they need to be happy. This can be achieved by navigating your way to the rum barrel so you can have a drink with your men. This is well and good, supposing you maintain an adequate level of barrels in your limited hull. Adjusting their food rations to a more pleasant level also makes them happy, but again, is limited by your carrying capacity, which can only increase as you are awarded larger ships. The only other noticeable way to maintain their happiness is by allowing them to sleep at night, which, unfortunately, comes into conflict if you're pulled into battle or need to go ashore to recover food. Outside of the main ship view, Her Majesty's ship also has a world map that is easily navigated using the left stick, as well as pressing A to execute. The right thumbstick moves the entire map. However, on the whole, the controls just aren't up to snuff. Building forts to control portions of the map is key, and this requires you per on-screen prompts to hold the X button and Y to view, and then again you have to hold X and press A to execute. This, unfortunately, also brings up the score, which is mapped to X. Instances of not enough inputs for action plague what could be an enjoyable experience on something like the PC with a mouse and keyboard. Visually, Her Majesty's ship is passable. The previously mentioned ship's view is where you will spend the majority of your time. The crew is lively and moves around the ship following your commands with ease. The ship itself looks fine, but lacks some of the finer details given its static nature. The variety of ships is minimal, but is done well enough to differentiate between the different classes. The individual areas of the ship can be confusing, as some really don't have a standout feature to set them apart, while others are easily recognizable regardless of the level of zoom used for viewing. Unfortunately, there's that word again. All the islands you hop around generally look the same. The water breaks on the front of the ship when all of a sudden a backdrop of land shoots into view behind your ship. While jarring at first, it does serve its purpose. During your travels, you'll stumble across islands that you can take over and build forts and towns, and others have banana trees, fitting, that you can send a longboat ashore and to gather the rations. Towns that you set anchor in here, again, very much the same. There is what amounts to a fruit stand that serves as your munitions shop, with a little city block that serves as your recruiting area for new crew members. The battle segments involve 2 static ships that, after the timer expires, fire upon each other into a cloud of gunpowder. Your ship does take damage, but it's only noticeable in the sails. The enemies, if defeated, do erupt into flames before comically falling on their sides and vanishing beneath the surface to be devoured by the sharks. Well, that's partially true. The sharks do exist as, well, fins, but serve no purpose in the game. Audio-wise, there are no real gripes to be had. There's some voice work done to help add to the minimal level of immersion. The ambient sound helps paint an auditory picture of what it would sound like at sea during the time of exploration and expansion. Hearing the crew rejoice after victory or when they're offered rum helps breathe life into what at times can be a pretty dull experience. Her Majesty's ship has some lofty goals. The setup is much better suited for the PC, as it's just not optimized for the Nintendo Switch. Had the title been properly optimized, however, the lack of true depth would run its course after a few sessions. There is a real full sense of progression and importance as you ultimately sail around a fake map on a never-ending quest, well, to do nothing. Sail here, fight these pirates, sail here, escort this ship there, is nothing below the surface to help bring this title to the next level. Unfortunately, last time I'm going to use that, this ends up being a title that should just have remained docked. It's just not seaworthy. Thanks for checking out Two Beard Gaming. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. While you're at it, hit the bell icon to get notified anytime we drop new content. Be sure to check out the website twobeardgaming.com for all your daily games and geek culture news. Till next time, this is TF Banana. Peace.